Hello and welcome to Jtimes, where we uncover the Kabbalah take on Jewish issues and current events. With me, as usual, is Dr. Michael Laitman.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Dr. Laitman. It seems like a holiday is a very special time, well, in any religion, any culture, but there seems to be something very special about the Jewish holidays. Plus, we have a lot of them. Can you, first of all, explain the spiritual meaning of a holiday? What do holidays represent?
The purpose of a person in this life, in this world, is very special. It's not simply to exist in this world for some time and then leave this world, but what do we come into this world with and what do we come out with? The Wisdom of Kabbalah says that while we live here in our world, and as much as this world seems to us superficial and that everything's clear, but the truth is that there's a very unique opportunity here for a person to attain the upper world, to rise from our world to a higher dimension. And as it says, you shall see your world in your life, meaning that we have to achieve the spiritual world while living in ours.
So the purpose of life in this world, yes, this material world, is not to remain in this material world and to end it after so and so many years, but to attain some higher world?
Yes, while we're still alive here in this world, to reach a higher level, which is above our body to an extent that we already talked about it, that we won't even feel that we're dying from this body, that we get rid of it, so to speak. In Hebrew, the precise word for it,
we're getting rid of it.
Getting rid of it is very...
It's a good thing, almost. It sounds like a good thing.
And it's something very gladdening. It's a very exalted and appealing goal if a person looks at it that way. And we have to carry it out. We have an opportunity. And therefore, our world is becoming a good, nice opportunity and a gladdening one if a person looks at it that way. And if he lives all the time with this kind of feeling that I'm coming soon, and that's really how it is, that we, through the wisdom of Kabbalah, and specifically in this generation, that this means is opening up to us. The wisdom of Kabbalah gives us the possibility to open up our senses, to discover the hidden world, to reveal it and make it the revealed world, the world that we live in, and to live above space, time, motion, limitlessly, above and beyond any limitations of our world. And so we have the opportunity and the possibility, and it's a great adventure.
And the means to attain that higher, beautiful, boundless world is the wisdom of Kabbalah.
Right.
Okay.
This is why it's called the wisdom of Kabbalah. From the Hebrew word lekabel, to receive that higher world that is now hidden
the wisdom
from
of
us,
reception. Okay.
and to receive it. So when do we start this process? From Rosh Hashana. Rosh Hashana is a day on which Adam Rishon was born, created. It's Rosh Hashana.
Symbolically or in truth? Because,
5,772 years ago, there was this person. Before him, there were many people as well. But there lived someone who was called Adam, not incidentally, but this is how he was called, and he was the first from all the people on earth who discovered the upper world, discovered the upper force of nature, discovered something that is above what we feel in our world. And that's why he's called Adam Rishon, the first Adam. Why? Because he's the first one to discover. And why Adam? From the word dome, to be similar to, meaning in the process that he went through, as a result of that process, he became like nature. He became similar to the Creator, and the Creator, it's called the general force of nature.
Like the verse, I will be like the Most High.
Yes. And then he is the first one. After him, there were like 20 generations of Kabbalists that also realized that same method of the wisdom of Kabbalah. By the way, Adam Rishon, he wrote a book. a book that we know now as well, that's called Raziel Malach, the hidden force, the secret force, concealed force. And the name itself is very true, because that is what he has discovered, that in nature there's a hidden force that controls nature, that leads us through in a certain direction, from cause to consequence to the purpose of our life, and so on. He discovered the whole process, and he wrote a book, a very non-simple book. He wrote it in a way that it's hard for us, it's hard for an ordinary person to understand it.
Yeah, I have to say that it seems like a common denominator for all Kabbalah books, that they have these romantic, mysterious names like the Book of Radiance, yes, the Zohar, the Angel Raziel, and all that. But when you try to read them, you stand there dumbfounded in front of this abstruse text, and you understand not a word of it.
It's true. It's true because we read in the book of Zohar that Rabbi Shimon spoke and Rabbi Abba, his student, wrote. And why did he write? Because Rabbi Shimon, he spoke openly, and Rabbi Abba, he wrote it in a hidden, concealed fashion, meaning he wrote it so that whoever is feeling, and the feeling of the spiritual world, for him that book is a guide, and whoever is not in the spiritual world, for him that book are simply stories. He doesn't know what exactly are they talking about. Stories, adventures, things that aren't that realistic. Not exactly clear what does it talk about. So, and that's how they wrote their books. As a result of discovering the upper world, Abraham, our patriarch, afterwards, 20 generations after Adam HaRishon, the Kabbalist, who was the 20th generation from Adam HaRishon, was Abraham, and he also wrote the Book of Creation.
The Book of Creation. Another romantic, mysterious name.
Right, but it's possible to study and understand what it says there. He writes about the system. We live in a small system, and around us there is a larger system, a sphere. The smaller sphere, and inside a larger sphere, and that larger sphere, it controls, governs us, performs different actions, which we realize whether we want it or not. It does it to the still vegetative animate, human beings, nature, the climate, everything that's going on with us. We're inside this special system. And how does this special system advance us and brings us to the predetermined final purpose? It says about that in the Kabbalistic books, but besides that, it says in those books, how can we discover that great big sphere? How can we get to know the program? How can we see these forces, feel them, and to control them? That a person, therefore he is called Adam, for him to become similar, domé, to all these great forces, and for him to really, through his free choice, he discovers his ability to connect and get into that system like we can penetrate a computer system and change things there.
So Adam, when he discovered that higher world, he called it Rosh Hashana, the beginning of the year? That's what he called it?
Yes.
Why?
Why the beginning of the year? Because from this point on, he becomes active inside that system. The Adam, the human part in him, was born, not that he was physically born, that young fellow who discovered the upper world, the higher world, the day that he has discovered the higher world, it means that inside him, the human species, his internality was born in him, and therefore he called it the new beginning, Rosh Hashana.
So it's a symbol of a spiritual transformation, perhaps.
Right. And that's what we're celebrating. For us, it's a holiday. Why is it a holiday for the people of Israel? Because Israel eventually have to undergo the same process and reach the same goal.
So there's, okay, go on. And then what?
What happens then? After he discovered it, he wrote, Abraham wrote, Moses wrote, also Rabbi Shimon, they all wrote books about how do we attain these things. And then what they wrote was actually how do we unite between us, because in the connection between us, as we said in our previous conversations, that we find this kind of a system, a network of connections between us that becomes like the infrastructure, like this new sensor through which we discover the higher world. We discover the higher reality, this sphere, its laws, and then how can we get into that and to change whatever we can change. We know, we'll learn from that. What can we change, what can't we change, meaning what's forbidden to change, and all of these laws of what's allowed and what's forbidden, they're called the mitzvot, the precepts. These are the mitzvot in their spiritual meaning. It's not that in our world I do something that's called a mitzvot, but these are spiritual actions which I perform, by which I turn myself and the whole world for the better, meaning that I raise, elevate myself, improve myself and the world. That is called to do a mitzvah.
So did Adam observe these mitzvot internally, because he couldn't observe it physically?
Yes. Meaning, if I improve my attitude toward the rest of humanity, then first of all, within the Jewish people, and then toward the whole of humanity, if I improve these relations, then actually through the correction of these relations, I start feeling the higher system ever more, the system that controls the world. And then I know how to better penetrate, enter it, and change my destiny. And therefore we see that in our times, we cannot change much in life. We try, but we're in this kind of collapse, crisis. We don't know how to correctly control our family, the attitude between us, even our relations with the children, within the family, all the more in human systems where people are involved in culture, education, even science. We are in a multifaceted crisis, up to the ecological crisis with the whole of nature, and the main crisis is in economy and a financial crisis. And it is all, we discover all that because the time has come for us to enter these systems and start changing them.
Do these broader spheres, do they affect the economy or education system or the ecology?
For sure. For sure, of course. But the problem is that one person can't change it, because the more the whole of humanity gets into it and starts becoming like that system, living like that system, meaning as much as the whole of humanity will advance towards the revelation of that system, accordingly that system will change, will become like it. This is why we're called Bnei Adam, human beings from the
sons
Hebrew
of
word,
or children of Adam.
To be similar to, yes. And then accordingly, we feel ourselves living in a better world, because we will be more adapted to the general system of nature, and then we will be more in harmony, in comfort, in different such feelings and states. Besides, by rising and becoming more similar to this higher nature, we become limitless, like the whole of nature.
This brings up a question, because you were talking about discovering or revealing this world or becoming similar to it. I don't see the link between becoming similar to that higher or broader sphere and improving that tiny sphere in the middle. What's the connection between becoming like it or discovering it and correcting life here in this compact sphere?
To the extent to which we connect the network of connections between us, all the 7 billion people, between us we discover the same network by which we can control the whole of nature. It's like a vessel or a tool, a means by which I can control everything. Therefore, the main law of the Torah is love another as thyself. What does it mean? That it's the general rule, that it includes everything, that if I reach reciprocal bestowal with everyone, the so-called love, the right form of connection with everyone, by that I discover the light, I discover the force, the general force in nature, and by it I know how to correct everything. I have no problem, I do it really easily. I perform such changes in external and my internal nature that I'm always in a balanced state, in the best possible state.
Why? Why does discovering this light or force puts me in a position that that I can fix everything, or that everything is fixed by itself?
Because it is the general force of nature. It is a force that changes and arranges everything for the better. The light is the higher force, and if I know how to use it correctly, if I identify myself with it, that I can bring myself closer to that force, then I enter that same area where it works, and then that upper force is revealed on me, and it gives me health and life and the feeling of the general understanding, infinite understanding. I understand what goes on before life, in life, after I pass from this life. I live on a level that is above time. First of all, the very first degree that a person achieves when he starts discovering the higher world is that he is above this life. He's living here, everything, and so on with us, but along with it, he sees the perspective from beginning to end, the whole of creation. For him, there's nothing limited. And that already gives him, allows him, gives him this very special attitude to his life, reality, people, and everything else.
We shifted a bit from the holidays, but I gotta ask this. If this force...
No. This is exactly the theme of the holiday. That we decide on Rosh Hashana that we take this method and we start realizing it. This is the first holiday.
Okay, but before that, you have this world, that's us. And you have the bigger sphere, that's the upper force or upper world, whatever. And then we discover this upper force and become like it, and become as powerful, as knowledgeable as the upper force, whatever, and then we fix our world, right?
Yes, we can discover that higher force and the network of connection between us, and then we already live in the higher world.
Okay, but my question is, why doesn't the upper force fix it without our help? Why do we need to be there in order for it to start fixing it?
No, it doesn't need our help. We have to discover a need, a deficiency for the correction, a want for it, because we have to rise in that direction, in the direction of the higher force, as it says, come back, the people of Israel, to the Creator thy God. And from our current level, which is like animals, the animalistic level, we don't exactly know what are we living for and so on.
And it's becoming even more so every day now. People are becoming more and more like animals.
Yes.
So you're saying the reason why there are all these corruptions down here is in order for us to want it corrected?
All of the suffering is in order to push us to demand for the upper force to come and correct us to be like it.
So it's the upper force that's breaking everything up here.
Right. This is why it says, I've created the evil inclination. He says that he has created the evil inclination. He didn't create anything good. He created only our evil inclination for us to reach, to come with demand to Him. Therefore, we have prayers and pleas. All the holidays, actually, these are plenty of prayers. Why? On all these prayers, we express our attitude to the higher force. We pull it. We want to pull it for it to come and correct us, to make us more connected. This is actually the whole of correction. Love another as thyself. That's the rule. So, for it to turn us into people who are really connected by ties of love between us. And in those the connection and love, we discover the upper force between us, and it arranges everything. That is the beginning of the year. When we understand the system, when we understand our destiny, the goal, this is the beginning of the new life, the Rosh, the head. The beginning of the year, of these changes that we have to undergo now. And later on come the other holidays.
Speaking of prayers, I learned somewhere that every prayer divides into 3 parts. There's the glorification, and then there's the request, and then there's the gratitude or thanksgiving or something like that. I think it's typical for every prayer, or at least for what we call Tfilat Amidah, the Shmoneh Esrei.
More or less, yes.
So it seems like there's a process within a process. Like each prayer in itself is a process.
Right, of course. There are very inner processes taking place here. In the Wisdom of Kabbalah, we have the scrutinization of the prayers.
That's what I'm asking. A Jewish prayer, what does it symbolize?
Deeds.
What do you mean?
Deeds that we don't simply say what it says in the book, but the Wisdom of Kabbalah, it teaches the person how to perform those actions that are written there, that in the book that we pray from, it says about the order of my prayer toward the higher force. How do I make the connection between us so he constantly changes me and raises me to a higher and higher level closer to him. And then it starts with arranging the relations between us. He is the higher and I'm the lower.
That's the glorification of God in the beginning.
Yes.
Yes, and then what?
Later, as a result of discovering the difference between us more precisely, I start with the plea. What does it mean, the plea? It's not that I have to ask him, but it means that I'm aware of all the changes that I have to go through, that I research myself and see how opposite to him I am, and then I ask for him to correct these differences, for him to make me similar to him. Correct me. This is the middle of the prayer. And then when I finish the prayer, that I went through all these things in practice. In practice, I change while I pray. Then, at the end, I'm grateful for reaching what I've asked for, and not simply that I read the page like we usually do, and I perform this work in a special time, which is Rosh Hashana, under special conditions, and it's a special prayer, and this is how I start my very first change.
And it's not just on Rosh Hashana, it's every prayer you have this. You have the same structure, you have the same prayer, Tfilat Amidah.
Yes, but there are big changes, big differences, because in each and every state we have different kind of work to do.
It seems like the part of asking for correction, it's always in plural tense.
Always in plural and always in order to connect with everyone. And also our prayers. It's not for myself, even though I do it, but it's always for everyone, for the others. We, always in plural.
Yes, but it would seem like I'm accusing everyone of being sinners like me.
No. We do say that we sin, but we understand that we discover these sins, and also you need a big revelation, a big light in order to discover them, and when we do discover them, we're happy about it. Suppose the day of Kippur, for us, it's a happy day, because we discover the evil, and finally we can want to correct it. And then for us, it's a very big holiday, because there comes such a great light that really corrects us and elevates us to the highest possible level.
Okay. And on that optimistic note, and with these words as an appetizer for our next show. We're going to have to stop here because really our time is up. Thank you very much, Dr. Laitman, for coming. Thank you all for watching. Please watch our next show where we talk about Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, and turn it from a day of fasting and suffering into a day of joy and celebration. Until then, bye.